All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. For those of you who are here with us in person today, and also everybody who is with us on Zoom, we are really pleased to celebrate the 51st anniversary of Black Thursday at the University of Florida, as well as share our recently opened exhibit that focuses on that event. We are really glad that you're here tonight. Before we get started, I just have a few things that I wanted to share. I wanted to thank our sponsors for our exhibits and programs, particularly Visit Gainesville, Alachua County. We are an independent nonprofit, so all of our funding comes from our members, donors, and grants that we're able to write. And on that subject, the Amazing Give is next week on Thursday. We are raising money this year for our landscaping at the museum. So if you would like to donate to that, donations actually opened today, and they will be open through next Thursday at 7 p.m. And I would also like to thank our community partners who are here with us today. We have the Dream Defenders, the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program, and the Cotton Club Museum and Cultural Center. So I strongly encourage you after the remarks to take some time to experience the exhibit as well as learn from our community partners. So unfortunately, Alana Gomez, who curated this exhibit, is unable to be here this evening. So I will be doing my best Alana impression this evening. We are going to start with some remarks from Dr. David Canton, who is the director of the African American Studies program at the University of Florida.
Good evening. So like we said, it's the 51st anniversary of Black Thursday, and as director of the African American Studies program, I'm a result of the work that students sacrificed, faculty, staff 51 years ago today. When you think of Black Thursday, what should come to mind is the impact of look at the Black Power movement and how students organized the fight to get institutionalized go after institutionalized racism at the University of Florida. So by developing an Institute of Black Culture, looking at Black studies, hiring more Black faculty and staff, they realized that the first groups of Black students that went into UF, I'm not gonna say tokenism as a word, but in terms of, we could say critical mass, or really going at developing institutions where African Americans are centered, the culture centered in the PWI, like UF, is what Black Thursday is all about. We also know that Black Thursday and student protest was a national movement throughout this country. Same thing with the Black Studies movement, that students across the country organized to protest institutional inequality. So I think I also want to keep in mind, as we think about the Black Power era, usually like to think of it like a downtrodden era, the golden era of the civil rights movement, all of a sudden everything came crashing down. But the reality, that's in reverse, right? If you look at Black Power studies, Black studies, professional organizations formed during the 1960s. You look at Black entertainment. So really it's where African Americans developing their own cultures, own institutions, like other ethnic groups in this country. And that's the same thing when I think about Black Thursday and the Institute of Black Culture and Black Studies. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Canton. We appreciate you being here tonight. Next, we are going to welcome the Alachua County Poet Laureate and member of the Matheson Board of Directors, E. Stanley Richardson, who has written an original poem on the subject of Black Thursday.
Is there a way we can put this up here?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Good evening. I want to thank the Matheson History Museum of Alachua County for inviting me, and also for the curator for including this poem in the exhibition. Last year was the golden anniversary of the Black Thursday event, and I was contacted by the director of the African American Studies Department at University of Florida, Dr. Canton, to compose some original poetry to commemorate the event. To give a little backdrop, in 1970, when integration officially took place here in Alachua County, I was attending Mabane High School, which was the K-2 through 12 segregated school in Alachua. And I remember being in second grade and everything stopped. They just abruptly stopped school right in the middle of the school year and we integrated. I went from Mabane down to Alachua Elementary, and Mabane, that school became the middle school. So just to get a little bit of where I was during this particular time, I was in the second grade, 1971, I was in the third grade. So to try to get in maybe a field of what was going on, I was trying to do some research to write this poetry. And everywhere I looked, this one person kept coming up in every YouTube video, all the research I did, and it was Dr. Betty Stewart-Fullwood. So I said, okay, let me contact her. So I reached out to her to try to get an idea of what it was like to be a student, to be on campus, to be involved in that particular incident, that environment. So I reached out to her and I asked her to give me just some words, provide me with some context or some words to just so I could better understand, emotionally what was going on. So during the correspondence, she wrote me back and I decided to incorporate our correspondence as the beginning of this particular poem. So it begins with Dr. Fullwood's response to me. The title of this poem is Golden. Here is the list of words that I believe capture the feelings, emotions, and the spirit of the events leading up to Black Thursday at the University of Florida in the spring of 1971. Hopefully, this will assist you in penning your poem commemorating this event. I didn't realize that I had so many emotions. Defiant, empowered, angry, mad, disappointed, betrayed, uncertain, upset, confused, tired, challenged, invisible, inspired, taken for granted, unappreciated, marginalized, satisfied, frustrated, anxious, determined, motivated, focused, centered, powerful, encouraged, strengthened, strong, proud, relieved, hopeful, optimistic, golden. Tilted is our cup. How agency flows bottom up makes it difficult to measure our victories and our displeasure. Eternal. A feather free falls from heaven into the abyss. A silken thread floats mercurial on Babylon's breath. An old spiral cylinder turns slowly, resting inside systemic by another name, another idea. Inclusion, diversity, equity, access, illusion. In Florida, just like in Alabama, I can hear Coltrane's horn blow. Disenfranchisement, blow. Non-violent resistance, blow. An elegant rage, a beautiful struggle, an exquisite expression of discontent. Our time spent singing the same golden spiritual. the more things change. The more things change. The more things change, the more they remain the same. Back again. Is this the refrain? The hook to our never-ending song? Our war cry, our oh Lord, why, our do or die, our wilderness to wander. Yes, the hill we climb, only to find ourselves once again generations at the foot, like Sisyphus, perpetually pushing in perpetuity, our rock, golden. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. I am now going to share a little bit about how this exhibit came to be, and then I'm going to put on my hat and be Alana for a minute. So maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, Alana Gomez, who was currently a senior at UF working on her thesis project, she reached out to see if the Matheson had any information that she could come do some research for her thesis about Black Thursday. I had never heard of Black Thursday. I had no idea what she was talking about, but she came in and did her research, and I thought that would be a really interesting exhibit, and kind of filed it away. Maybe 2 months later, Alana emailed me again looking for an internship project, and I said, how do you want to do an exhibit? So that is how this got started. And it really, I'm just so proud of Alana and the work that she has put into this. She has done so much research in the archives, in newspapers, speaking with people who were actually there. And so being able to turn her thesis paper into a piece of public history is a really challenging task, and she has done an admirable job. So unfortunately, she's not able to be here tonight. I believe she's watching us on Zoom tonight. But I am now going to share the remarks that she had prepared to introduce some of the background and work that she did for this exhibit. In 1968, after news of yet another student uprising at Columbia University reached him, President Stephen C. O'Connell announced, "I wouldn't wait." Nope, I apologize. I started on the wrong page. We're starting over. In 1969, as Black students entered into historically white colleges and universities, they found themselves lost in a sea of white faces, in isolation of any comfort or familiarity. An unnamed student from Lawrence University described the experience as, "You are alone, stranded in the middle of white culture." And Stan Herring from Gannon University said it was like being a solitary man, a foreigner in a strange land. Not only did the universities in which they pursued their education lack other students who looked like them, but they also were void of courses and social structures that reflected their culture. With the precedents set by the civil rights and Black power movements behind them, these anguished students knew what they had to do. In order to get the attention of controlling organizations and state governors who worked to keep their voices silent, they had to find a way to make them listen. They had to speak up and speak out, to share their experiences of how institutionalized racism continued, even in the ivory tower. In short, they had to make a lot of noise. President O'Connell headed UF from 1967 to 1973. His presidency was shadowed by turmoil in the wake of the Vietnam War and civil rights movement. From 1965 to 1972, Black and white students on campuses across America protested for greater racial diversity and inclusion at their universities. But O'Connell had his own plans for his university, first in the South and second to none in the nation. This vision did not include Black students who, in his opinion, did not contribute to the quality of the university. Still, Black students fought for their rightful place at UF. Eventually, these differences would cause an eruptive reaction at the university. This was how Black Thursday, the arresting of 66 Black students in peaceful protest, came to be. In 1968, after news of yet another student uprising at Columbia University reached him, President Stephen C. O'Connell announced, "I wouldn't wait one day to have demonstrators removed from a university building." On April 15th, 1971, he made good on that promise. When members of the Black Student Union went to Tigert Hall that Thursday to demand change, 66 Black students were arrested. In the aftermath, 123 Black students and 2 Black faculty members left the University of Florida. In Alana's research, she emphasizes the importance of bringing history, especially a dark one, to the forefront of university education, and why memory and commemoration are important. She spent a lot of time digging through university archives and local newspapers to find why O'Connell was deemed such a racist figure by students. Through these primary resources, as well as books on the Black campus movement, Alana put together a narrative of O'Connell's vision of UF, a version that didn't include Black or minority students. Many students at UF demand the university remove President O'Connell's name from the precious basketball stadium and O-Dome for his lack of support toward Black students. However, name removal is much more complicated than that. It involves a web of legal hoops and name ownership, which usually has a lot of money tied into it. Just recently, in 2016, the O-Dome was bought by a medical device company called Exactech for $5.9 million. However, commemoration doesn't just have to come in the form of name or monument removal. Students and activists can create their own memorials and remembrances. Last summer and fall, Alana continued her research through the creation of a Black Thursday exhibit here at the Matheson Museum. The exhibit, which opened in February, is a painful reminder of how the history of Black Thursday is acknowledged and celebrated everywhere but at UF. The University of Florida owes it to its Black students to include their history. This means commemorating its most historic event, Black Thursday, and making sure to create positive change in the realm of racial inclusivity. Black history is a part of UF's history. Without it, UF can never truly be a top 5 public university. Tomorrow marks 51 years since Black Thursday. We have those 66 students and their supporters to thank for not only making headway in the realm of Black student rights, but for showing faculty and the nation what students can do when they band together. Students have a voice and it will be heard. 51 years ago, the students who protested at Black Thursday used their voice to create a more inclusive campus for Black students, getting the administration to launch more intense efforts for recruitment of Black faculty and students, and effectively securing the Institute of Black Culture. As we reflect on this momentous event, may this 51-year celebration carry with it positive change in the fight to ensure all students feel included and safe on UF's campus. So I am now going to welcome to the podium Dr. Betty Stewart-Fullwood, who was a participant in these events. She is included in the exhibit. If you go into the oral history box, one of her quotes is the first thing that you will see. So we are really, really privileged to have her here with us today. And I am looking forward to hearing directly from her. So without further ado, I'm going to get out of the way and turn it over to her.
Good evening. It is my privilege to be here tonight. I'm making sure that this is going to work. So if I just, okay. My heartfelt thanks to Alana for getting this together. We've emailed back and forth and we've been on a committee together on campus. So I've gotten to know her pretty well. So I'm glad that she was able to get this together. I'm sorry that she isn't here tonight in person to realize the benefits of her labors. Good to go? Okay, I started out this slide presentation, which I put together. I think the pandemic has me all brain fuzzed. I don't know if it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, but during the pandemic, the Jacksonville Black Alumni Association asked me to do something on Zoom about Black Thursday. And so I kind of put this together for that particular reason. And so this is what I'll do my presentation on, and then we'll go from there. Before I do that, I'm starting with Gator Homecoming, October 27th, 1967. Because that is really one of the I guess, focal points from my beginning, my tenure here at the University of Florida. As a native Gainesvillian and a proud graduate of Lincoln High School, I was a part of the Miller band of Lincoln High School. And that's me on the corner there on the end with my clarinet. And so that was marching in the Gator Homecoming Parade. And so that was a tradition that we had at Lincoln, to be a part of the Homecoming Parade and even a part of Gator Growl. I was, as I said, a native Gainesvillian, born on the east side, attended all segregated schools, and I'm a proud graduate of segregated Lincoln High School at the time. Once I graduated, I attended Bethune-Cookman College for a year and a half. With money getting a little tight, I returned here to go to the University of Florida. I could have gone to the University of Florida initially. Somewhere back then, there was something called a Florida assessment test that you had to take and make at least 300 above before you could be accepted to the University of Florida. And I made 322, yay. But my father being a Methodist and having close ties to Bethune, I decided to go to Bethune-Cookman College at the time, now university. In my senior year at Lincoln High School, I and about 25 or 30 other students were chosen to work on campus at various jobs to get a feel for the University of Florida campus, to see if we would, fit in, what kinds of jobs were available as student assistants kind of persons. We were still in high school. And I was honored to work in the Office of Sponsored Research under Dr. Pat Rambo, who's deceased, but I learned a lot from her. I was very welcoming in the office, and I was a student assistant. I went around and ran errands. I went from building to building, taking probably $1 million research packets from place to place, since we didn't really have computers like we have now. But I've really learned a lot in that year working on campus. And then I went to Bethune-Cookman for school. After the year and a half and the expenses kept going up, I returned to the University of Florida as an undergraduate student and resumed my job as a student assistant at Division of Sponsored Research. So the University of Florida campus was not new to me. It wasn't anything different. I knew all the campus offices and all the ins and outs. And being a native Gainesvillian, of course, I knew Gainesville. But what I didn't know was that the University of Florida was a very difficult place to be as far as an academic and a student here. I graduated valedictorian from Lincoln High School. And when I went to Bethune-Cookman, my GPA was 3+, determinant. I pledged a sorority. I had all the fun I could have at a university. When I came back here to the University of Florida as a student, it's quite different, because sitting in the classroom, I had to take biological science and physical science for 3 semesters together. I think I may have flunked the first 2. I flunked both of them, I think, the first try. I think the second try I may have gotten 2 Ds, and I think maybe I withdrew the next time. I was doing very well with the humanities and arts and that, but physical science and biological science, they were like death traps. So I finally got over that hump. And I said the University of Florida is a place where you learn how to learn, because you have to learn how to learn each class, each situation. And so I came here in the fall of 1970 is when I turned to the University of Florida. So 1971 was when I can't say all hell broke loose, but when all the stuff hit the fan. And so that's the perspective that I have as far as being a native Gainesvillian and then getting to this point at the University of Florida. So that's me in high school in Gator Homecoming Parade, marching down University Avenue. I don't know who took the picture. I didn't even know we had pictures back then, but that was back in '67. And then what I did was I collected some of the pictures from a scrapbook that I started. It's over on the table there. You can view afterwards. That I have no idea of why I started a scrapbook. I just started collecting articles and saving them. And so when I came to the University of Florida, the BSU officers were the ones that you see listed there on the paper. That was from one of the independent papers here. I don't think the Iguana was out doing them, but it was one of the independent newspapers. So these were the BSU demands, 1971. You've probably seen them before. The commitment to have 500 out of the 2,800 freshmen be African-American students, to establish a Department of Minority Affairs, to hire a Black administrator, to hire a Black assistant manager and personnel, intensification of recruitment of hiring of Black faculty and staff, fair and equal treatment of our Black brothers and sisters who are employed by the university. And this was the statement that was also accompanied that says, thus far, even though we have pleaded, begged, and worked diligently with the administration, our cries have been ignored. This university has consistently denied us these basic needs we deem necessary. We are the voice of the Black student, the Black worker, and the entire community. And for our full participation as students, employees, and citizens of this state, these needs must be met. We were radical. So these are some of the pictures from the scrapbook. Mr. Roy Mitchell, who was the coordinator of UF Minority Affairs, along with Kip Smith and David Freeman. These were the ultimatums that were listed for O'Connell. Most of you probably know more about O'Connell now than we did then, but he was the same one who sat on the Supreme Court and had a lot of different adverse decisions that would have gone against African Americans at the time. This was full amnesty. This was after persons were arrested. So let me, I don't think I have it in here, but let me just back up. So Black students had been asking for a meeting with Dr. O'Connell for months, and it kept being denied. And so a group of students went to President O'Connell's office to request a meeting. They were told to leave. They left peacefully. Another group returned and asked to meet with them, or at least set up a meeting for him to meet with them. They were denied. They left. So then a third group arrived, and we didn't have Twitter, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have cell phones, but some kind of way word got around. And so more people showed up because others were aware of the fact that demands had been, well, they weren't demands at that time. They were more like a gentle nudging or requests, I would say. So by that time, others came. And when the other students came, then O'Connell had the police called, and the police had the buses come on the lawn of Tigard in the front and to load up students and took them off to jail. Okay. At the time of this happening, Mr. Neil Butler was a mayor here in Gainesville. He was also a nursing graduate student. We were known throughout the United States. Jet magazine, I'm not sure whether or not it's still in publication, put an article in there. It was a weekly little magazine that came out especially for African-American students. And Joe McLeod and Earl Wilcox and Ron Jackson were featured in this article in Jet magazine. It says, arrest Blacks for forcing whites to be janitors. And as the young people would say, what had happened was there were white students in the residence halls who thought that Black custodians needed to clean up all the mess they made, no matter how big a mess it was or where it was. And so they would make messes for the custodians to pick up. And Joseph and Ronald and Earl said, you know, this is not going to happen, because they saw them as their parents, as their aunts and uncles and cousins. And so they knocked on doors, banged on doors, made students come out of their dorm rooms and clean up the mess that they had made. The withdrawal, it said, tapered off at 117. I think there was maybe 126 total that withdrew. This is an article from the Thursday, April 29th, Alligator. More articles about the withdrawal process. This young fella here, Sheldon, this is what, 52 years. So he's 50-ish now, taller than I am. And I showed him this picture, and of course he wanted it. So I sent it to him by text message, but that was him. He's the grandson of T.B. McPherson, who was one of the renowned athletic directors at Lincoln High School. And the T.B. McPherson Center is named after him, but so that's his grandson. That's a copy of my withdrawal form. I don't know, racial discrimination just sounded good to me. It was short, and sweet, to the point. But they turned it into personal reasons. So personal reasons was the same to me as racial discrimination at the time. More up to date, this is a picture of Mr. Virgil Hawkins, and those of you who know anything about the history of the University of Florida know that he fought hard to be admitted to the University of Florida Law School and was denied that many times over, and made a decision that he would withdraw his attempt to become the first one to be admitted if others were able to come after him. And so that is exactly what happened. And Dr. William Bill Simmons was one of the directors of the IBC. I'm not sure who the other young lady is, just probably a student that came up to take a picture as well. But this was when Mr. Hawkins came on University of Florida's campus, I think, for a Martin Luther King celebration in 1998. This was in 1991. This is BAM, and this was another demonstration by African-American students. And it concerned the fact that Black students wanted to have control over who they had for for Black History Month. And student government was giving them a hard time as far as to who they could have and how much they could pay for the person that they were going to bring in. And so at one meeting, someone hit down on the podium and said, "Give us our money." And so that's where the BAM came from. These are a couple of three of the first faculty and staff that came after Black Thursday: Dr. Carlton Davis and his wife, Pauline Lawrence, and Dr. Ronald Foreman, who started was the background for the Office of African American Studies at the University of Florida. This is Mr. George Stark, myself, and Mr. George Allen. A lot of the people that I communicated with here, for instance, Mr. George Allen, he and his wife Enid lived one street over from my mother in Duval Heights. And I used to babysit their daughter, who was physically handicapped. And I would walk that block back and forth at night, because his wife was in nursing school at the time and he was in law school. And so I thought it was I didn't know what he was doing at the time, but it was good to know that he succeeded. This is the back of a t-shirt I meant to bring, but I left it out. In 2006, the Black History Month Committee did a tribute for the students, and that's the front of the t-shirt. And that's the back of the t-shirt. It just commemorates Black Thursday, and at that time was the 35th anniversary. This particular slide is very important because it was the commemoration, as I said, February 1st, 2006 of Black Thursday. And the person, I don't think this has a pointer, but the person with the beige cap on is Joseph McLeod, who was one of the students who you saw earlier in the residence hall slide. But he was very active as a student during our time here. And what they're doing is they're doing a commemoration by having people sign a book as if they were signing to withdraw from the University of Florida. And so he's there. And then the next slide is Lydia Washington, who was an up and coming student, a leader here at the University of Florida. I thought that was very powerful with old meeting new picture. I think Lydia is in her, I don't know, maybe 5th, 6th, maybe 10th year at the University of Amherst in Massachusetts. This goes back to some of the other persons who came even before me, and this is Dr. Reuben Earl Bigotry, who was one of the first 2 African-American graduates of the University College of Medicine. And I met him this is my first time ever meeting him, at one of the Sam Proctor programs back in March of 2018. Can't remember, I think 2018. But he's in Jacksonville. And of course, we know the Honorable Stephen Mickle. This was at the same event, and his wife, who was the first to receive a UF nursing degree. And Samuel Taylor. Samuel Taylor is a former graduate. He's a graduate of Lincoln High School as well. He graduated before I did, and then came to the University of Florida and became the first African-American student government vice president and then student government president. He resides, I think, in Jacksonville now. And then I just listed some of the persons who I thought were very important as far as a roll call for the University of Florida. Mrs. Daphne Duvall Williams taught at Lincoln. Well, I don't know if she taught, but she was one of the administrators at Lincoln High School as well. Those are the list of some of the first Black undergraduates. These are people that I thought were key in Black Thursday itself. Mr. Roy Mitchell, who sacrificed his legacy by standing up with the students. Mr. Neil Butler, who was caught between, I guess, a rock and a hard place, but because he was a nursing student and he was also mayor, but he was also an African-American student. There's 72 arrested students, which also included 2 white males, and then 123 students who began the withdrawal process from the University of Florida. Kip Smith, Samuel Taylor, and of course, the Service Employees Union Local 626 AFL-CIO. There were a lot of backers that were not in the forefront, but were in the background supporting the students here at the University of Florida. These are some of the other key figures. Father Michael Gannon was one of the liaisons between Black students and Stephen C. O'Connell. David Chandler as well. Steve Ufelder was the student government president, and he stood with Black students as well as Donald Middlebrooks. These are some of the first Black faculty and staff as a result of Black Thursday. Dr. Thomas Wright, Dr. Foreman, Dr. Chow, the Professor Betty Ingram, Carlton Davis, Elwin Adams, and Billy Avery. Okay, I think I'm getting about to the end. Yes, that is the end. I thought that was a way to visualize what was going on. The other visualization would be the scrapbook that I have. But like I said before, I don't consider myself a historian. I guess I've gotten older, so I'm history. So I guess I'm a historian in that matter. But I hated history. I hated trying to remember dates and places and times of people. But history is important, and I'm so happy that I did take time out to keep the articles and keep them going and try to remember some of the things that were going on at the time. I think that's very important. And as Alana said, that everybody else commemorates Black Thursday except the University of Florida. And it's almost like it didn't happen. When I went to Bethune-Cookman, our class, I can't say we were definitely the hellraisers, but we were saying that, they would not have closed Lincoln in the middle of the school year if we had still been in school. They waited until we left, and then they closed Lincoln in the middle, just like they did throughout the state of Florida, and made the Lincoln high schools the middle schools. And yes, I still have an anger in me because we sold a lot of hot dogs. We washed a lot of cars to get the band uniforms that were only used for a year after we left. And then they all of a sudden disappeared. Nobody could find the band uniforms. And I know they were 2 years old. And so our history was kind of wiped out. So Black Thursday was my attempt to get back some of what had been taken away by the closing of Lincoln High School, because we just thought it was wrong. And we wanted to make a wrong right. And so this was a way to do it, because we knew that Black students, Black citizens of the state of Florida deserve better. And so we wanted to make sure that it happened. And I'm glad that I took part in it. I was not one of the ones that was arrested, if you look on the list of the ones that were arrested. But I remember meeting many times in the basements of Broward Hall and other places when we were trying to get strategies together as to what we would do and say, and who had the need to know and who didn't need to know what was going on, because you didn't know, you didn't know. So you couldn't be held accountable for what you didn't know. So that was the state of affairs. And I'm thankful that you allowed me to present.
Thank you so much for taking the time to share your story with us. We really appreciate you being here today. So that concludes the remarks for this evening. So I encourage you all to stay, take some time to look at the exhibit. For those of you that are on Zoom, you have the digital version of the exhibit that's available on our website, mathesonmuseum.org. And thank you all so much for coming.